Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this. Um, how is everyone doing? How are you doing, Guilherme?
I am cold, but it's getting better day after day. It's the winter, right? So yeah, it's better get used to it.
Yes, there's only one way from now, which is colder. Um, Today we are starting our 31st episode of Time to Talk. This is our um, fortnightly date where we talk about mediumship. The main idea of this program is to, I guess, taking it out, bring comments, have a think, have a discussion about the multiple topics touching mediumship or that derive from mediumship. And before we start our very interesting topic, I must say, if somewhat controversial sometimes, um, topic of the day. But before we do that, let's do our usual. Oops. There you go. Our usual. First of all, the broadcasters behind this program. We have Spiritist Society of London. Both Guilherme and I are members of the SSL London. This is a study group that has studies online and face to face about Spiritism. SSL is a member of BUS, the British Union of Spiritist Societies. BUS is a federation uniting a lot of Spiritist societies here in the UK. BUS has a lot of events and initiatives committed to spreading the knowledge about Spiritism. And third one, Kardec Radio, which has been around for over a decade. I think actually it's been 11 years now. I think we're either close to or already past the 11th year anniversary. Kardec Radio is also an institution committed to bringing you knowledge about Spiritism in English. And they have a ton of content. Please go check their web pages. Kardec Radio even has a app, so download the app where you can find all of the information on what they're doing there. Now, episode 31, mediumship in the hybrid world. And I will start this topic trying to be lighter, asking Guilherme what does he think about the changes that happened with the pandemic in our lives in general, and how that has an impact or should influence our, I guess, ways of working, if I must say, within a spiritist center, within mediumship groups, since now everything is hybrid. So, how do you see this connection, this impact, Guilherme?
I ask you to be light. Well, the way I see, there's a law of progress. Everything that happens has an organization, and it is according to the law of progress. You start your question asking about our families, our personal lives. It is not the first time in history that we had a pandemic, but at least for the great majority of incarnated spirits at the moment, it was the first pandemic where we had to revisit a lot of points that were taken as granted, as cast in stone in every aspect of life: family, work, religion, charity, how to survive, healthy-wise and financially wise. We had a lot to think, and we had time to think because we had to be at home. We we could go out, but not as we used to. So we had to learn how to live better with our family too. And one of the things that came with the pandemic, that situation, was we have stopped to do our activities, spiritist activities. I remember that very early in the pandemic, I think was the first week of the pandemic when it has reached my home country, Brazil. The Spiritist Center that I'm part of, I'm still part of it. They call for a meeting. What should we do? The first reaction of many was we have to close, we have to protect ourselves and our loved ones. But there was also a team trying, we can do that, and we can mitigate some of the activities we are doing. By the law, we could not have face-to-face meetings, we could not have lectures or things like that. But we also had our responsibility because we had families to feed and we have some souls to feed.
Mm-hmm.
One of our colleagues started straight away to propose, let's do that using Google Meet, because that was the tool they knew at the time. And that was totally new for me, by the way. And straight away we said, yes, that's it. We will not shut entirely our studies, and we move on. And we did. We gladly did. And a few weeks later, a few other centers in our hometown start to follow the same. And I think that was very positive. At that time, I asked personally the leader of our group in Brazil, we may have to think about virtual mediumship meetings. And he said that he was not comfortable with. He pointed some points, and I agreed. I totally agreed, because I had the same point of view. I was trying to think about something new, outside the box, if you like. But deep inside, I was afraid to do it. That's the main reason. I was afraid to do it. We never did. We never did. We did mediumship meeting for many years. I'm talking about an institution that started to have mediumship meetings 92 years ago. So we were fairly familiar with the routine of a mediumship meeting,
Mm-hmm.
but not through the computer. And we said no. So I think you can make some more questions and then we'll come back later.
I think, to be honest, I think you touched a few points that probably pass people's minds. And I remember the first time I was hearing about doing online mediumship meetings. I had the same concerns in terms of, but can we do it? Not from a possibility, because I know it is possible, but more of like a should we do it, in terms of the preparation for the environment, the presence of the spirits, and so on, and the type of energy that goes around, the type of connections that might happen with the mediums, and so on. And that is what probably one of the things that goes by the minds of a lot of people. I think especially the people that have participated and know about mediumship meetings. in spiritist institutions. And my question to you is how do we go from there? Because if I start to rationalize in terms of how life changed, work changed, as you said, the work changed, the interactions with your family changed, the way you go do your groceries changed, and so on. Why not? Why would everything have changed and not some other aspects of our lives? If we were clearly in a new situation, a new stage in our intellectual evolution, where new tools are available to make things possible in a different way. But we are very settled in ways, especially when we talk about faith and religion and so on. So my question is, I think what you described in terms of resistance and concerns is the thing that hits everyone.
It's natural. It's natural.
How then do we move away from that? Instead of hitting it and thinking about, no, this is not right, we cannot do it because the spirits are going to be attached to the mediums, they're going to be stuck in their houses, the energy is going to be bad, they're going to have nightmares, they're going to, and so ever. Okay, how do I know if there's actually a possibility and how to do it?
Rafael, I would describe the path I had to follow to be here today. Right? I think it's better.
Mm-hmm.
I am into research in the Spiritism for many years. And I am part of one research that's happening from before pandemic. And having discussions with this group came to my attention that 3 different groups were performing mediumship meeting online. When that came to my attention, I said, oops, I cannot be left behind. I need at least to know, understand, and if possible, participate to one meeting so I can see by myself what's going on. Because the way I see mediumship, everything starts with experimentations, with trials. So a week and a half after I was informed that was happening, I was granted access to one meeting in a different state than mine in Brazil. I was very, I wouldn't say not believing, but I was very cautious with everything on that meeting. And I clearly said to the indoctrinator, the organizer of the meeting, if you like, I'm here just as a witness. I'm doing this as part of a research, and I'm here just to see what is happening. And he said, you're most welcomed. You're not the first one. So, great. Me and my wife, we participate on this meeting. When the meeting started, I felt straight away the presence of the spirits. Spirits that I am familiar with because I'm worked with them for many years. But great, they're also here to see what's going on. And the meeting started. Normal conversation, doctrinator and medium, as we have face to face. And I start to feel exactly what I felt for years in a face to face meeting. The energies, the presence, what to do. And my wife had exactly the same too. And I asked through the meeting, the indoctrinator, the coordinator, may I help? May I participate more than I thought? Yes? Okay. So I had the first opportunity to talk with the spirit through a medium via an online system. It happens in a way that I indoctrinate one spirit in a different country.
Mm-hmm.
Another indoctrinator spoke with the spirit through my wife. And I also had intuitions, I had participations from the benefactors that I was familiar with. Well, making a long story short, on the end of the meeting, the team, they start to laugh. You said you came here only to see. I said, yes, that was my intention, but was not the intention of them,
Mm-hmm.
because they throw me in the lion den, if you like. And that was real. From that moment in forward, I had no doubt anymore. I was working with the same team I was working face to face. I was feeling exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first thing that have changed my perception. And I start to find hard to explain everything I was feeling through a virtual meeting. So I went back to the books. Kardec, Chico Xavier, André Luiz. And there is enough information there to put my heart to peace. And I think that's the most important. Even today in our study, if I remember what I was reading in the study, that on the introduction of the gospel, there is information there already.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if you want to see, if you don't want to see, it's a different thing.
Let me ask you something else, because you mentioned something that I think it's important for us to explore a bit more, which is you started to search for it from a exploratory perspective. You wanted to see how it was happening, what was happening, and so on. And based on your experience, you got the confirmation about the seriousness and the possibility of work by engaging with your spiritual workers that you're used to guide the works you are involved with. So this is something that usually comes to my mind as well. I think um, a lot of the groups, they're very skeptical and reticent to start those works or even consider doing those works. And one thing I keep thinking to myself is, why not asking to the spiritual benefactors then? Because they are the ones behind the work anyways. We are just instruments, right? So in doubt, if you have your mediumistic groups, you can pose the question. Maybe you need to change the format. Maybe you need to change that. But why not asking them if you already trust them, if you have the relationship, and so on?
Let me just say one thing before I forget.
Yeah.
I see as a duty to every serious spiritist person to do research like Kardec did. Try, experiment, create data to make your ideas or theories validated. It's not what you think, it's what you were able to prove. So it is a duty to every spiritist not to just rely on books, but to experiment, of course, safely, in a decent manner, if you like. That's the first thing. I am very happy because you said that, Rafael, about asking the benefactors, because we can see through Kardec's work in many points that Spiritism is not from the incarnated. Spiritism is from the spirits. Saying that, we have to work with the spirits. And I did ask the team that I'm used to work with. I will send you the psychography later for your own knowledge. I did ask, after that experience I had, that was sufficient already, but I'm always ask the benefactors I'm used to work with if I'm not having like another crazy idea, or if it's something happening, if it's something specific that I need to work upon. And I did ask. And the answer was positive. Yes. Prepare yourself, and we will be with you. That's all I need. That's all I needed. Because I've worked with them for years, decades, and I know them. Right? So from that point onwards, I was engaged in a meeting that I went for the trial. I've been with them for a period until we started the meeting in UK. And today the meeting is happening in few places. This meeting, this method of meeting is happening in several places. And following what Kardec did in his time, we collect data, experience. I can clearly say that we had no problems in the meeting that could not be dealt with. Oh, so you had problems then? Yes, some people are not very familiar with computers. Especially elderly people, they are very resistant to use computers, cell phone, things like that. So we had to train people. We have to make them acquainted with a new tool. But talking about the spirits, the mechanism of the meeting, talking with spirits, giving help to the spirits, we had no problem. One thing that was very important that I was told before I went to my first mediumship meeting, virtual mediumship meeting, was that a lot of people have fears. That's the main obstacle, fear. Through that process, through that research, I also participate in an ectoplasmic meeting online, and it's real. Well, how you know it's real? Because I participated before face to face for years. And then online, exactly the same thing happens. So today, I cannot say I don't believe. It's not safe. I can't. Or I wouldn't be faithful with the spirits part of the team, with my colleagues. I cannot say that.
Yeah. You by giving this example of all the different meetings, like the ectoplasmic meeting, another question comes to my mind. And usually when we're talking about other groups that are not are still skeptical and reticent about starting mediumship meetings online, there's the usual association to doing disobsession work in online meetings. And what I wanted to ask you is like the type of work, for instance, that we have been doing in SSL every week. It's not the usual disobsession work, right? It's just, it's more of a, if I were to classify it as more of rescue work, it doesn't mean that there is no obsession cases that come through. but is it, if you read about his obsession in the books and so on, I think it's a bit not quite like that. So my question to you is there at the moment, based on what we're seeing, is there a limit to what should be done online? What type of meetings we know works? What type of meetings we have received? If you have received any indication otherwise to avoid, how would you go about that?
Well, after I had the first question to the spirits team, if that kind of meeting was a way to go, I had several other opportunities where I made different questions. And the only remark that I had through the process from the Spiritist group, from these benefactors, was that do not engage into a disobsession case. That was the only remark. But there's one thing that is very complicated in the Spiritist movement, because people that do not understand what really means disobsession meetings, they think any mediumship meeting is a disobsession meeting, and it's not. So I would recommend people to study a bit more, to do some research, and eventually they will figure out there are differences between types of mediumship meetings. But as ever, mediumship evolves. And a mediumship meeting that is a live organism also evolves. So we started in a way, and things start to progress. And things only start to progress when the team is capable of this type of progress. I'm using progress because I have a lack of better words, if you like. So today, we had different meetings. One time is a bit lighter, the other time is not that light. And the most important is that we are helping those spirits in a safely manner. So, really, real disobsession meeting is hard to find face to face. What people say is a disobsession meeting is a great majority is not. Because people don't even have a clue how to be prepared for a real disobsession meeting. Right? But I would say that as anything we start step by step, slowly, no rush. And if you are working with your benefactors, they will not bring you a massive case to deal with on your first meeting, because you need to be prepared first. So things happen normally.
Let me ask something else then. I don't mean that to be an attack in no ways to anyone, but it's more of a conversation, right? And I respect very much everybody's opinions. But there are videos online of very respected mediums advising not to do online mediumship meetings as a general rule, right? Without going into much detail or exception, as a general precaution. And I remember when I saw that video, I was already participating. We were already having our mediumship meetings in SSL online for months and working really well as far as we were concerned. So it got me a little bit by surprise to see that. But after a bit of reflection, I think I understood a bit the reasons behind that. And what I want to ask you, what do you think about it? Especially for people that can take that as oh no, I saw this and somebody said we're not meant to do it, therefore I'm not going to do it. How do you see it?
Rafael, my response is not to this particular medium or not to any particular medium, but is to the broad audience, is that this is your opinion. I haven't heard any benefactor coming forward and giving an instruction. So you may have different opinions for so many different reasons, and I respect all of them. But I work with the spirits. And it's working. You may be sharing your opinion. I'm sharing with you data. We're talking about 1.5 years, 2 of cases that I witness, that I participate, plus years of the others institutions, because they have that method even before the pandemic, some of them. So there is data. And data is what Kardec has used in his time. So bring me data. But bring me data in a format that is concise and we are able to analyze. Because, of course, if your home is a mess, if you are a mess on your day to day, drinking, smoking, and something else, having arguments in your home with your family, if not doing something worse, of course, it's not going to work. And by the way, if you are like that, it's not going to work face to face either. If you don't have enough faith, if you don't trust your benefactors, don't go that way. It's not going to work. If you are so afraid for so many reasons, don't start it. You may have your fears for some reason.
No.
But I'm working with data. And with data, I can only accept any other comment as point of view. Because, as you said, work. It does work.
Yeah.
In different countries, and it does work.
Yeah. Let me stop here and say hello to our friends. We have a lot of friends online. I want to say hi to Faye, hi to Ebony, Daniel, Herminio, and Marco. Very nice to have you. If you have any comments, questions, or anything, please drop us a note and I will bring them up. I want to talk a little bit about what you mentioned, and I think an online mediumship meeting does not excuse all of the work that and dedication and commitment that a medium needs to have, of course. And we do associate in a lot of cases the protection of the mediumistic work to the institution, to the venue where the institution is based, when as soon as you start reading about mediumship, you will know that the protection comes from the medium, the commitment, the behaviors, the mental state, the emotional state, and the habits, and so on. And same thing when we are talking about you mentioned our houses, and that's probably one of the things that whenever we are in any I don't want to say danger, but in any situation, in tricky situation, spiritually speaking, even if you're a medium or not, the hygiene that you have to go through mentally and in your house by edifying the thoughts you have in your house, the interactions, the discussion, the gospel at home, the prayers, and so on. All of those things are basic things that you need to have within yourself, within your mind, within your day-to-day, for you to be ready, for your house to be ready, prepared for a balanced life. Even more important, for mediumistic work. So I think there's whenever we talk about, we're going to do a online mediumistic meeting, together with that, everything else has to come with the study, the cleaning, the commitment, and so on. So I just, when you were talking about that, it was something that I think people disassociate, and they think that the protection around the mediumistic work resides only in the physical venue where the group is based. And we know that in reality, that is not true.
Actually, the virtual meeting, we replicate exactly the same as we do face-to-face. Our responsibilities and care and duty are exactly the same, must be exactly the same. And we have to be careful, because some people even say, well, I don't want to have a meeting in my place because I'll bring the spirits and they will stay at home. By the way, the spirits that they visit the presential meeting, they can also come with you for your home. If you did not know that before, I'm sorry to tell you that. So that can happen too, so that people create so many boundaries for their own protection, if you like, without really analyzing everything around it. We have to be more familiar with energy, fluids, how things work with the spirits, be acquainted to the real mechanism of how it works. And then, if you don't feel comfortable, fine, don't do it. But if you only don't feel comfortable for any reason, that's not sufficient, in my opinion, to say that's not possible. That does not work, because you have no data. And we are here playing with data, good results. So unless you have a different experience telling me that you had bad results, and allow us to evaluate what could be the reason of your bad results, it's just an opinion, I'm afraid.
I have a couple of comments I want to bring. I think before we talk a bit about how it's working in our meetings, to give a bit of a testimony of how things are working. I want to, just came to my mind, and I think it's what Marco is talking about, is we have a lot of cases where we have healing sessions or healing interventions where you have a specific group in the center or whatever, where they have a specific type of work where they can take the healing energy to the people where they need in their house. They go a specific time, they do what they need to do, and go on. So how is that different from a hybrid work? How is that different from an online work? I think that what I'm trying to bring again is the mediumistic work. It might seem, and it might depend on organization that we do here on our plane, but the real control over the work, planning, and so on, it happens on the other side. So if you're comfortable with the spirits that you work with, the benefactors, the mentors, the guide, the group you're involved, you should be comfortable and trusting of the works that are about to happen, even if it's in a different format. Because if you have their confirmation or approval, if you must, then there's trust. And whatever needs to be put in place on their side to protect everyone will be put in place on their side. And of course, that's not going to excuse you from doing your part as a medium, as a counselor, or any other role that you have in the meeting.
Rafael, we are prepared to receive that healing from distance, as people call sometimes, and that's valid. I'm okay. I'm happy with that. But helping from distance. Now I'm afraid. So that everything lies within our hearts and what we think. But the organization is beyond our organization, as you said. The organization is from the other end, not from this end. And if you don't work with them, if you don't trust them, I start to have the same questions if you do work well with them when you are face to face as well. Because if they are here, what's the difference? If you can have your face to face meeting, do it. Don't stop doing it. That's not what we are advocating here. Not at all. But if you cannot, don't find an excuse not to do charity because you are afraid or because of any other reason. Because this is one of the regrets I have.
Yeah.
On the beginning of the pandemic, for a period, I stopped helping the spirits. They were in need. I cannot undo what I did. Today, I still don't have a possibility to have a face-to-face meetings because of my geographic localization. But I'm working with the spirits several times a week, every week. How many times are you working at the moment? How frequent is your mediumship meeting at the moment? Oh, very good. You're having 2 meetings a week? Wonderful. You're doing your bit. What about you? They are doing nothing right now. Nothing, I mean, having mediumship meetings to help spirits that are in need right now. What is your excuse not to do? Because that's the best word that comes to my mind. It's an excuse. If you try, if you generate data, if you study with an open heart to find the right information to give you support, and on the end, you don't feel comfortable or capable to participate in such a meeting, so be it. But we are responsible for everything we do, and we are responsible for everything we don't do. The tool is here, is real. Work. We don't want to do.
Yeah.
Eventually, we'll know the consequences of it.
Evan is making a good point here that we actually see that in every single book that we read. The technology we have today to facilitate our online meetings originated in the spirit realm. So I don't see why technology should be a barrier for holding mediumship meetings. A very good point.
Is not. Technology is not a barrier. Our preconceptions are.
Yeah.
We still have people that advocate that the earth is flat. Regardless the amount of data we have proving that the earth is not flat. And we advocate a lot, Kardec, but only when it's working for me.
I think it's there's an element of we get settled on our own ways. Just because you study spiritism, it doesn't change you from being someone or somebody who is adverse to change. It's our natural reaction when things change. And we think that maybe because we're spiritists, we've been studying about it, we've been reading, and we understand everything, we might be a bit more open-minded. It's not true.
Do you know what came to my mind, Rafael? Just interrupting you a little bit.
Yeah.
Kardec, he was very happy to see from the turntables moving to the baskets, moving into the little baskets, moving into the little tables, until the medium started to write. He was very happy to see all of it. But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that would like to return to the table.
Yeah. Interesting parallel. I like it. can we then talk a little bit about how things work for us? Oh, before we go there, you mentioned something about like the experimenting and trying things and so on. And that got me a little thinking a little bit about should people just experiment on their own? Because just
I would
from
not recommend that.
from your speech, I just want to make that clear.
No. When I'm talking about experiments with the minimum level of security.
What is that?
Because things can go
No,
sideways.
what is the minimum? What is the minimum level of security?
I will use one of the answers from the spirits on the beginning of my research before I engage myself in start in the mediumship meeting like that, right? In start to create a mediumship like that. You need to have mediums, the minimum number of mediums with experience. That was one point. When I'm talking about mediums and indoctrinators, of course.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have them, even face to face can go sideways. Virtual is exactly the same. So you need to have the minimum team familiar with the job. And the way we did when we create one of the meetings we create, we only had people with years of experience as a mediums and as indoctrinator. We had no problem at all. We also started a mediumship for beginners, and now people is jumping on the chairs, on their chairs. How is that allowed, for God's sake? Yes, we started. It's like a year now, ish, a bit more, I guess.
More than a year, yeah.
More than a year. We had no problem at all. Of course, we had experienced mediums, experienced indoctrinators, following the guidelines of the benefactors, replicating exactly the same method used for years on a face-to-face meeting, having a particular care about instruments and technology. And until today, data again works.
Why don't oh, you there? Why don't we talk a little bit about the format then? And let me just do a clarification here because I think the word indoctrinator might scare a lot of people.
Who is scared?
I'm scared.
I'll teach you here now. Come on.
Indoctrinator is nothing but a counselor. I think it's a better way of describing it. Somebody who will talk, listen to the spirits, talk to them, and try to help them, guide them in their problems and issues they might be facing. But it's not somebody who's trying to brainwash them. It's just somebody who's trying to talk to them through counseling. So I think counselor is probably a better word, not to scare anyone. But anyways, we still have some time. Why don't we talk a little bit about our experience? Like as you said, we've been running mediumship meetings online for over a year now. So there's a lot of observations, a lot of empirical data that we can share. So how would you describe how would you go about sharing that to anyone out there?
Well, to share, first I have to have someone interested to have access to the data. To share something like that is difficult to me. How I'm going to share something if I don't know what you want, right? What I can share is the organization we have. We have the indoctrinators. We have the mediums. We call each medium at his time, his or her time. We allow 2 communications per medium. We start with a prayer. We also have a short vibration when we do have names of people that are in need. After that vibration, let's say I'll call let's vibrate for Rafael. And then Rafael will have a time, like he would on a face-to-face meeting, to give communication to two spirits. When the two spirits' communications are over, I will call Joseph. Let's vibrate for Joseph. Joseph will give voice for two different spirits. I'll call Mary. Mary will give voice to another two spirits. On the end of the meeting, we wrap up with a prayer. After the meeting, we stay online, we chat a little bit about our experiences, about things that we felt for the first time, for example. Because don't get me wrong, even on face to face, sometimes we have things that never happened to us before because mediumship evolves. So after that conversation, we sharing our experiences, we have questions, we try to answer those questions, and that's the mechanism. But I'm very willing to share anything, provided that I know what people wanted to be shared.
No, I think, but that's what I meant. I think it's just explaining a bit of the format. I would add to that at least from the ones I participated, they are voluntary manifestations. So there's no at the moment evocation.
No, we don't do evocations.
And what about technology issues? How do you go about that?
Well, if we are in Europe, very unlikely we have technology problems, providing we know how to use the cell phone and the computer, right? Even in the eventuality of a problem, we can always first trust in our benefactors. We are not alone in our place. Likewise, Rafael is not alone in his place. If for any reason he dropped the internet for a few minutes, nothing wrong is going to happen. Because we are there. The spirits are there. And after a period of time, we start to create a relationship with the members of that meeting that we start to feel what they are feeling. Exactly the same like you do in a face-to-face meeting. It's not like just a computer thing. We have like an entanglement of energies, of fluids. Everyone that participates on that meeting is tied to the next one. We had one day internet was dropped for a few minutes. Someone started not to hear what the indoctrinator was saying. There was not a problem because he could feel the spirit. We could continue the conversation until the internet returned, and it was very normal. It all depends on what you believe in your faith, in your practice. And if you are so scared about technology, as I'm using here a computer, for example, when I'm traveling to France, because of hotel internet sometimes not very good, I connect my computer to the Wi-Fi of the hotel. That is 50-50. But I also connect using my cell phone. One day, the computer was down, and I continued the meeting through my cell phone. There was no interruption. So there's always a way around if we want to have a way around. So technology is not an obstacle that cannot be surmounted.
You mentioned something about the attunement of the team working together, and we do see that very clearly in the testimonials from the group members, right? That the different mediums have different types of mediumship, and they experience things differently. But we do see a common reporting that we perceive the group, even though we are spread in different cities and so on. People can perceive and see the group from their astral body, as if we were connected in a specific area, in a meeting room, around the table, with workers around us. So that connection, and you see that as somebody is bringing a communication from one spirit, other mediums or even the indoctrinator or counselor they also feel the things that the spirit that is communicating is feeling.
Mhm.
We even have specific cases where we have two spirits. They are communicating to one another through different mediums in different cities. So we are seeing, again, from our empirical observations, no limits in terms of how the sessions are run for that type of work.
But how is that possible, Rafael? You know? Well, I would suggest studying the topic perispirit, fluid, double vision. And when you start to put everything into the pot, you start to understanding a bit how that mechanism works.
Yeah. I do feel there is a there, as it should be, right, as it's normal, uh, by understanding that these meetings are possible and they work, we can um, talk about our own experiences. New questions about how things work will come up, right? I think in terms of the geography, location of a medium and a spirit, um, the buildings or venues or areas that are created in spiritual world, and how there is a connection between those areas and the multiple geographic space on this plane work. If the connection between the spirit and the medium is at a physical level on the same place or not, or how quick you can take a spirit from one place to another, all of those questions that will come up and can come up from learning that it's possible to do mediumistic meetings in other formats will help us understand further the connection between the body and the spirit, the functions of perispirit, different mediumistic characteristics. So those things actually open up doors for us to question, so we can understand better the phenomena. We can understand better the realities of the spiritual life. So that is also a open door for more questioning in terms of how things work and
You
better
said
understanding.
something, you said something very important. Ask your benefactor. Well, I guess you trust him or her, right? So don't trust anything we are saying here. Ask them. If they say it's not safe, so be it.
Mhm.
Ask your benefactors. I really encourage all the mediums, all the indoctrinators, all the coordinators, ask the benefactors you're working with and take from there. Don't don't trust us. Take it from there.
Very good. We are getting to our end. I think before that I close, I just want to shout out to Marco. Marco is sharing some other examples of testing things and trying different things. He's talking about transcommunication, the science we're trying during the World War II, and also used by mediums in Brazil. So I guess it's from the perspective of trying those things and studying them, understanding them, seeing the possibility of them, will give us more space to understand better the phenomena and the reality of spiritual life. Yeah.
On this topic, there are serious people studying TCI. It's real. But once again, a lot of people may not think it's true, may not think it's real, may not think it's safe. But eventually, like Chico Xavier told us, we will have means of communication with the spiritual world that do not need the medium. How that's going to happen? I'll leave that word.
Um, just so we close here, because you mentioned the introduction of the gospel according to Spiritism. Just brought a little passage here. It's from the second item, the second part of the introduction. God willed for the new revelation to reach humankind through the quickest and most authentic way possible. That is why God has entrusted the spirits with taking it from one pole to the other and manifesting themselves everywhere without giving anyone the exclusive privilege of hearing their word. This universality in the Spirit's teaching is what comprises Spiritism power. I'll leave that as food for thought. I will recommend people to read the introduction, the second part of the introduction from the Gospel, as a reflection, as a provocation. And if you have any questions, any doubts, or if you are more interested about how things are working in our group, please drop us a message. But our time is up, so I'm going to go to our announcements, and so we can close this session today. As usual, next Tuesday we have the Nostlar studies. If you'd like to join, is at 8 p.m. UK time. You get the details for the Zoom meeting here, or you can also look at it on the Facebook page for BUS or SSL. Then on Saturdays, we have the Medium's book study group. It's at 10:30 a.m. UK time. Also, you're welcome to join us. We are going item by item on the Medium's book, discussing it and talking about it, so you can bring your questions there as well. Every Wednesday, you have Coffee Break with Kardec, hosted by Munir, where he talks about the book Genesis. And every Wednesday, have Spiritual Light. Tomorrow, you have a special one talking about reincarnation at 4 p.m. UK time. And that is what I had for today. So, hopefully this was useful and a good conversation. I quite enjoyed it. Guilherme, thank you very much for your patience and for talking to us about all the process that you went through. And yeah, that's goodbye for me. Ciao,
Well,
Guilherme.
it was a pleasure to be here. And my last word is, do not miss an opportunity to do charity. See you soon. Bye.
Ciao.